Hello, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the International Journalism Week. We've been looking forward to today. I'm glad it's here at last. So nice to see you all. I'd like to hear your good morning. So good morning, everyone. All right, thank you. Okay, so International Journalism Week starts today, like you can see. A lot of you know, I'll just introduce myself. My name is Vina. I am one of the organizers of the International Journalism Week. And we have another organizer here, Ilya. Yeah, so we work with a team of about 16 staff to put this program together. The International Journalism Week, this time the theme is journalism in times of conflict and tension. And we also have a sub-theme which is on trauma-informed journalism and the risk of moral injury. So we put things together, we have different things like we have people coming to speak to you about mental health, war reporting, because a lot of times people talk about what journalists need to do in society, what they are not getting right, but we don't spend so much time talking about the journalists themselves, how they need to take care of themselves. So we've just come together, a lot of us have come together and designed this program so that it can equip both people who are practicing journalists, those who will be journalists, can equip every one of us with the skills we need to stay safe while doing this work. So we have a lot this week. Today is day one of the program, and we are going to continue like this till Thursday. So 4 days, we're going to have interesting programs to have people coming from different parts of the country and people speaking to you from different parts of the world. So you have people speaking to you from Ukraine, you have people coming from the BBC, we have people from Nigeria, from the US. So they're all going to be speaking to you about their knowledge, their experiences on how to keep yourself safe when you become a journalist. Sometimes people cover war and we look at these things on the screens. Sometimes they look exciting, they look interesting sometimes, but we don't think about what happens to the people after they've been out there, they've watched people being killed, they've seen blood, a lot of things have happened to them. We don't think about what happens to them. So it's important for us to also begin to plan for people who cover these things. That's why we are having this program. So in this program, we have also made plans to keep ourselves safe. So there is also the risk assessment we've done. We do not expect to have any fires, but, but in the event of any fire, if you hear any alarm, you're expected to go out through the door. You have that door there, you have this door as well. Down the stairs, you will see the sign that takes you down the stairs. Just follow the signs down. There is a refuge point just by the staircase there. In case you're unable to go yourself for any reason or any disability, you can go to that refuge point and people will take you out. So, my voice is echoing. All right. So we have done this to keep ourselves safe. When the time comes, you'll have people that will be there to guide you. I'll also be there to guide you. And for social media, I'm sure Emma is going to tell us more about social media, but we're going to let you know if there's any program you are not allowed to tweet. But for others, you're allowed to tweet and share your experiences about those. But you can avoid tweeting the faces of people, except they're giving you the consent to do that. So this is how we are going to do this today. We have this program from 10 to about 12 o'clock. 12 noon, we are going to have a break. And then during the break, we are going to arrange some things here because after the break, we're going to have a workshop on war reporting. After the workshop on war reporting, we'll come back here again and then continue the program till about 3 o'clock today. And we'll be back here again tomorrow. We'll give you more information as we go on. But now I think it's time for us to go into the meat of this program. So without wasting time, I'm going to invite our own Dr. Emma Heywood, who is going to speak to us on the meaning and significance of International Journalism Week. Can we put our hands together?
Oops. Hi, everybody. A lot of you already know me. I teach some of you during the week, so here we are. Welcome to International Journalism Week. It's a great event. Make the most of it. And well done for finding this room. It's a bit tricky to find. I'm going to talk to you today about IJW and its significance both to you and to journalism. And then I'm going to look at the themes for this year, and I'll give you a few examples to make it come to life, to make it real. So IJW has been around for quite some years now, and I'm really pleased to be opening it today, to be opening such a great event, and to see so many of you here. Do come in, all the ones at the back, come in, join us, as you're hesitating at the door. I had the pleasure of organising this event for 3 years before COVID, inviting experts from media organisations to come and talk to you, so I understand the hard work that goes into it, but also what you get out of it. So make the most of it, engage with it, ask questions. You'll get a chance to ask questions as you go through. Don't be shy. First years, I think you're also tweeting, aren't you? Am I right in tweeting there? There's a vague nod, thank you. The hashtag is in the corner. Make sure you put the hashtag on to get bigger reach. So it's a great experience for you as future journalists, and it's a skill to do all that tweeting, to pick out a short message from a long talk and tell others what you found important. So the event has grown and grown over the years, and it has a core role to play despite the theme changing from year to year. So you've all come to Sheffield because you want to be journalists, you're interested in journalism, you want to be involved in journalism, and you understand why it's so important. But it's not as simple as just telling a story. You all know that. Not everyone likes that story. They don't like the way it's being told or the way it's being conveyed, and they'll fight back. They criticise overtly or not, and this can leave its mark physically and psychologically. And it's this other side of journalism that we're going to talk about in IJW. So in the past, we've talked about journalism in high-risk environments, beyond the flak jacket. What should news organisations take into account when sending journalists into hostile environments? We've talked about human rights treaties and conventions and how this affects journalists. We've talked about assaults on press freedom, and we've talked about investigative journalism, including reporting on human trafficking. We've also looked at the wealth of, I'm just waiting for everyone to come in, do come in, find a seat, don't worry. We've also looked at the wealth of organisations that are involved in journalism, be they security teams, risk managers, media development organisations, charities, non-governmental organisations who build capacity within journalism and provide protection and shelter to journalists. Our aim during IJW is to show you how important your training is and how big the field is that you're going to be working in. How important it is that populations globally have the right to access free and impartial information, to allow them to take informed decisions about their lives and those of their communities. So the importance of IJW is for you to understand this and get the opportunity to hear from the very many organisations that are involved. They'll bring it all to life for you and bring that classroom theory and all those case studies we talk about into the real world. So why does IJW even focus on conflict or trauma or violence? Well, media often plays a key role in today's conflicts. Basically, their role can take two extreme opposed different forms. Either the media can take an active role in the conflict and has responsibility for increasing the violence and sometimes, or it can stay independent. Therefore, it can contribute to resolving conflict and alleviating violence. Which role the media takes in a given conflict and the phases before and after depends on a complex set of factors, including the relationship that the media has to the actors in the conflict and the independence that the media have to the power holders in society. So there's a whole set of interdependencies in play. So I've got this quote. This is from a guy I met in Burkina Faso. He's a state TV presenter. And he said, the public media, the public authorities and politicians have an adulterous, incestuous and harmful relationship, a relationship that is anything but common sense. So IJW talks about these factors. It talks about international media, local media and other associated organisations. It provides the opportunity for you to hear about journalists' experiences, but also about research that is being conducted about journalism in extreme conditions. So yes, I know you can all go onto YouTube and Google away or have a little look and find similar information, but this week, these people are actually coming to speak to you, be it online or in person, and they will be speaking directly to you. So let's link some of that to your theories, to what we're doing in class. So international media organisations and sources such as the BBC, CNN, Al Jazeera and so on have a global reach, we know that. And as a result, they have an agenda setting effect. Remember we did that a few weeks ago? So this effect revolves around the way key actors in conflicts seek to manipulate public perceptions of a given conflict or a disagreement. So any actors in conflict will seek to either maximise or minimise the conflict, depending on their position in the power. So the weak actors might want to socialise it and then get people in, enlist allies for their cause against a greater power and increase their perception of suffering. And actors in positions of dominance may seek to keep it quiet and limit attention awareness of the conflict. So those who are weak will seek to draw media coverage to their conflict, while those who are in power may want to minimise the extent of the problems, or they will frame it accordingly. Remember, we did framing as well. So this year, we're adding another component to this overarching discussion of journalism, conflict and tension. And we're going to look at it from the angle of the journalists themselves, how they cope with pressure and the pressure of the job and the trauma of reporting trauma. So hands up, all of you who want to be a journalist. Well, that's quite positive. Relatively positive there. Okay, another set of hands. Who wants to remain involved in journalism? Well, that's yeah, all right then. So there's quite a lot of you. I would say the overwhelming majority of you want to remain somehow involved in the media, whether it's behind the camera, in front of the camera, in communication. So a good chunk of you. But you're going to come across some horrible stuff, both during your course and after it when you've got your job. So it might be court reporting, it might be as a war reporter, it might bring back your own trauma. So this week, we'll discuss why journalism remains a necessity despite the trauma it might incur. We're going to ask how to address that trauma, what forms it might come in, is it just in conflict, how others have experienced trauma, and how did they deal with it? Are the people you are reporting on in traumatic situations victims or survivors? And why and how do these labels even matter? And when or should journalism stop being a vocation given that trauma? And we will ask how you are perceiving these victims and traumas, victims and survivors and their families. And we'll ask, what effect is that going to have on you? And are you having to report on something that clashes with your own beliefs and morals? That's the moral evening thing. So these are the angles that we're going to focus on this week, of course, with an international angle. So I'd like to give you a couple of examples from my own research to highlight why it's important to give people a voice, but also the effect it has on journalists and others involved in media production and support. So as many of you know, my research focuses on war-torn countries in West Africa. So there's crises abound. There's food insecurity, poverty, health crises, climate change-induced crises, coups, and now the security crisis caused by the jihadists. So this situation, unfortunately, is not unique to this area. There are currently conflicts going on throughout the world It always has been, and unfortunately always will be. But the events need to be reported on, but they do affect everyone. So I've worked both recently and in the past with journalists who covered coups, military attacks. They've had their organisations ransacked, their equipment confiscated. They've been attacked, even shot at. And yet for many of them, it's a vocation. This is a quote from a private needy journalist I met in Burkina. Said, despite our journalist passes, we were beaten up by the RSP soldiers. These are the presidential soldiers. But that's what journalism is all about, earning your stripes. It's a bit sickening, though. You can't be a journalist and think that people are going to fawn all over you. That's the risk of the job. If I had to do it again, I would. They know they can't be wrapped up in cotton wool, but it still affects journalists, both physically and psychologically. So I'm currently working on a project involving trauma-sensitive communication in Burkina Faso, and amongst women journalists who have reported on survivors in camps who have been internally displaced because of the terrorism. So these survivors have seen their families massacred and now suffer in terrible conditions in camps. It's super interesting, but it's also quite distressing because about 80% of the refugees in these camps are women, and about 60 to 70% of those women will suffer gender-based violence this year, and it can range from rape to child marriage, to sex for food aid, to domestic violence, and so on. But all of these subjects are taboo. No one can discuss them openly, especially the girls who are affected, be they victims or survivors, however you label them. But by getting information out there about these taboo topics, journalists are making the topic recognised. Communities are acknowledging that this violence is going on. Steps are being taken. Lives are improving. The former is obvious. So in one aspect of this, the women being interviewed couldn't actually respond to the journalist's questions because it was too hard for them to actually speak. One had seen their school teacher tortured and shot before her. Another had seen all the male members of her family shot. Others had been raped frequently. Details of the horrors and the absolutely despicable nature of the events are too terrible to recount, let alone endure. But they wanted their stories to be heard. They wanted a voice. So the journalists asked them to write it down instead. And the young women, as they were in this case, said they felt some release about finally being able to talk about their experiences, albeit in writing. They then realised that other women had suffered similarly, and they began to talk about it more openly to peers. This was because of the journalism. It had a positive impact, despite the topic itself being so very terrible. We arranged sessions in the field where doctors and psychologists would answer any questions that the young women had previously written down in order to be able to provide them with coping strategies. And we broadcast it on radio, enabling even more women to hear about it and benefit as a result. Yet the women journalists I work with out there are traumatised themselves. So we now have a situation where journalists are traumatised by reporting on traumatised women and traumatic events. However, according to a recent report, there are only a dozen or so psychologists and psychiatrists in Burkina Faso, in a country with a population of over 20 million. So what do a journalists do? Whom do they turn to? They also don't have coping mechanisms because trauma and mental well-being is considered to be a Western thing. So it isn't acknowledged either. So you can see the problem, the spiral of complexities. Trauma affects the victims and survivors and the journalists. Is it just journalists? It's not just journalists, say, from this country reporting on a conflict in another country. It can also be the journalist within their own country experiencing the same horrors being inflicted on their own communities. It can be researchers trawling through footage, camera people, directors, those in newsrooms, those dealing with the people. It's endless. So should we stop journalism because it hurts? If we did, where would that leave us? Should we just report on nice, easy topics? Or give in to those who might physically or psychologically threaten us? And to conclude, that's what I'd like you to think about this week. So I would ask you to think to make the most of the opportunities that IJW is going to give you. Participate fully, attend all the lectures, all the classes, all the workshops, and tweet widely. I'll be watching for your tweets. Ask questions and be engaged, but please don't think that this won't happen to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was really very interesting, very important. So thanks, Emma. We are going to move on straight to the next